So this is Denise Rollins, Executive Director of the Whole Heart Life Center. And I am in the room with two amazing ladies, and we are having a conversation. Having a conversation about life and loss and what it means to live with the whole heart. And so today I welcome Tamera Green and Sandra Boujai, both accomplished master coaches and also consultants. And so as we have this conversation today, I first want to ask, what if I were to give you one word or ask you to provide one word that describes what you struggle with, what would that one word be?
My word, I think, would be renew, because I recently retired and am using my skills in a different manner. I am a clinical social worker, a psychotherapist, but as a partner with you at Whole Heart, my role is one of a life coach, helping one to use their past and present experiences to go through crisis situations or situations that are uncomfortable for them. So it is a different twist for me. Also letting go of the 32 years of experience that I have with my previous job, and making myself over in this capacity, rather than supervising counselors to provide services. I myself am providing services and educating. So it's a different twist for me, and I feel like I am renewed.
So it's interesting because I asked about the area that you struggle in, right? And when you say the word renew, on the surface, that's a positive word. Renew is growth. It's new opportunity. But yet, there's also struggle with that. And tell me more about that.
In renewing oneself, one has to look at the positives and the negatives of the renewal. I have to let go of what the role that I had previously, and renew and change my focus for myself, and let go of those things that I had as a supervisor, as a program coordinator. Use some of the tactics that I use with my staff in life coaching. It's just a twist. It's not getting rid of anything. It's a renewing. It's a growth. It's a building. It's a building block. I used the experience that I had in my previous life as a building block, and being able to spread it and help others.
So you said you had to change, and somebody once told me most change involves some kind of loss.
Yeah.
How have you dealt with the loss?
Well, it hasn't been easy. I don't have the same social contacts that I had before. I don't have the same. I went back to my job, and I was standing there talking with the person at the front desk, and one of the ladies who was helping her at the front desk pushed me aside to get to the clients. And I thought to myself, do you know who I am? But I'm not that person anymore. So the renewal is let going of the past to look to the future. And that's not always easy. It hasn't been easy for me because I determined my worth by the role that I played, and I don't have that role anymore. So I had to let go of those ties, those images, or those things that I thought about myself, and change my thinking.
Thank you. Tamera.
So I wrote down several words, but to get to one word, the one word that best describes what I'm struggling with now is relinquish. Similar to Sandra, I looked forward to quote unquote retiring from a almost 24-year career in my role in HR leadership, and because I was wanting to transition to do what I do right now at Whole Heart, which is coaching, career counseling, consulting, using some of those things that gave me joy in my role as a part of what I do in my community. And similarly, so I'm not sharing anything new, that's a whole lot of unlearning that has to take place. It's easy to let go of the things that you didn't like doing, but it's hard to let go of those things that gave you the clout to do the things that you love doing, because you don't have a large corporation and policies and procedures and resources to give you access the way that you once had. You have to kind of be all that for yourself if you're going to do this by yourself, or if you're even going to go to another organization to kind of prove yourself. What I've struggled with, probably more so, because I believe I anticipated that would be something that I'd encounter, is relinquishing my independence. So as a single woman, and have been all my life, and at one point single mom raising my son, who's now grown and on his own, married and taking care of his family, being employed at a corporation, I was really allowed to be as independent as a woman as I could. I had my own resources, my own car, my own home, several homes I've owned and sold. So there's this thing, because I haven't officially retired, that I didn't anticipate, and it is learning how to be a little bit more dependent, and even be willing to ask for the help that I so proudly didn't need before. And the relinquishing of that old identity and that old resourcefulness has been a greater challenge than I anticipated. Also, another word that undergirds that is surrender. So in trying to relinquish that old identity and that old independence, it has really placed me in the mindset of needing to surrender. This is what it really means to surrender. All my trust, all my hope, God is my God, and He's taken care of me all these years, and it was through the veil of this corporation. Now that's gone. Now I'm really learning what surrender means, and that my sufficiency and provision really comes from Him, but it requires me to relinquish and surrender.
And go ahead.
And then you have to be still, because if you're too busy trying to second guess or think if you're good enough, then you can't hear what's being sent to you spiritually. So I have learned the hard way that you have to be still. Just be quiet and listen. I'm going to tell you, but you got to be available for me to listen to what I am giving you, the words that I am giving you, that you are good enough, that you do have the qualities to be successful. You do have what it takes. You are not alone. Because sometimes you feel, am I the only one that feels like this? Am I the only one that has these doubts? If I go out in the world, I have the car, I have the house, I have the clothes, but do I really feel that I can do this? And there are times when I have doubted myself, and then I'll sit down and talk with somebody, and they'll say, you know what you told me? It really helped me. And you say, excuse me, damn, I did help somebody, you know? So, and I do have the qualities that I know that I can use. I do have the gift to help. And I can do this. I got this. But you do go through doubt periods where you doubt yourself. And that's okay.
But what I hear you saying, Sandra, is that in the midst of that doubt, that you coached yourself.
Yes.
To remind yourself of what's already within, which is, to me, a powerful concept, because nobody can coach us often better than we can coach ourselves, because no one knows us better than we know ourselves. And so with that in mind, I want to go back and ask Tamera, with your word being relinquish, which says to me, to relinquish something is to lose something. How did you coach yourself through that loss?
I'm still in the process of doing that. You know, part of understanding that this is a loss. This is a loss. This is not the, closing shop and opening up the doors to a new shop. There is a grief that needs to take place here. And I think without realizing that that's what I've been doing, feeling sorry for myself, all these fears and doubts and second guessing, did I hear God? Was it really time? In addition to what Sandra has talked about, can I really make a difference? Who's going to listen to me? And then this other thing, I've talked to my son and anyone that will listen, and close people to me, about this feeling like I'm in this funk. Whether it's depression or whatever you would call it from a clinical standpoint, I've struggled putting my finger on it, and it feels like there are a lot of things I could be doing right now, as opposed to sitting here wondering what should I be doing, or if I'm good enough, or did I make the right decision. There's a lot of things I could be doing, but there's this thing that has risen in me but I don't want to do that. I don't want to go back to what I used to do, because I feel like I'm going to die this slow death. And I will never have the opportunity to explore. Here, I'm 48 years old. Not quite old enough to retire monetarily, but not young enough to just start fresh all over with a whole lot of years ahead of me. So going through that process and working with a whole heart center and these tools and these resources to just kind of think through, well, when have you seen this before? There's been a lot of understanding of trying to coach myself through this, but then having to coach myself. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced this, but to just coach yourself, I'm going to be okay. I had a moment one time in the shower where the money was dwindling down, and I had to come to a point of, everyone is telling me to go get a job. And I know that makes sense because bills are due. But Lord, what this feels like is I don't want to do it. And I don't know why. I don't know how to make myself want to go back and do that. And something in me said, is that your only option? Now, I live in a house. It's a beautiful home. I was very thoughtful about choosing the location where it is. And I always felt if I needed to, I could sell the house. And out of all the places I've lived, the market would be right where I can turn a profit on this house. And it was then that I decided, you know what? No, that's not my only option. There is another option. That felt good for 3 days. And then I was right back to, but they're calling me for bills due. So coaching and having moments of progress and insight and peace, and then going back to feeling like none of that will ever work. It's just like this roller coaster. So yeah, I'm still in the process of coaching myself through because it's really trying to understand and filter out some of the stuff that's just noise, that's just the process of transitioning, and things that are tangible that I can really do something with and really speak to a testimony in overcoming that. I don't know if that makes sense or not. But.
It does. But what both of you are talking about, whether it's renewal or having to relinquish, it seems so solitary. Like I'm doing this by myself. And so is there any place for community or other people in the processes that you're going through when you're struggling?
It has helped me by helping others. I had a client that was having some issues in his marriage, and he said we're supposed to be working together spiritually, physically, and financially. And in working with them, I was able to look at my own situation. So we don't step into a coaching situation saying, I know everything, I got you. It's both persons or all the people in the room that you are coaching that come to a conclusion or come with a resolution to whatever the situation is. The person who is the coach doesn't know everything. We don't know all the past of the person we're sitting there talking to or the present. We only know what they're giving, the information that they're giving us. So we work through with them and come up with a situation and how to resolve it. And I think that helps us in our lives too, because we're not coming professing that we know everything.
I like that.
And it's all about change too. Change is good, but sometimes change hurts. When I walked out of the building December 31 of last year, I cried in my car for an hour saying, Lord, what am I going to do now? But as I stated before, I was able to be still and listen. And he said, I got you. Just be still. I got you. So in working with others, I have come to the conclusion that doing this work, helping others, I can help myself. Because I'm not alone. And I think that's the most important thing, to know that I'm not alone and the people that I'm trying to help are not alone, that we can work through.
Okay. Tamera, I know you do a lot of small group work. How does that benefit you as you go through what you go through?
When I led it, and recently, and it's interesting because I thought that I was sharing more than I had evidently been sharing about my experience. The way that you framed that question, it related back to this independence that I'm trying to relinquish. Not being fully conscious that I really have done a lot on my own. For a variety of reasons, it really is, it's like this internal vow that I've made to myself that I'm not going to depend on anyone else. And that's a hard thing to relinquish because for whatever reason those walls were built up, they were celebrated and admired and reinforced through that admiration and celebration in a way that made it difficult to fully relinquish my needs to allow my small group to help me the way that I would undoubtedly help them. They can tell me anything, and whatever I have, they have. But the doors, I realized, didn't open both ways until recently a slip of the tongue. And their reaction to me, they were floored that we would have been so hurt had you lost, these resources, and never said a word to any of us. And here I am thinking I'm sharing, pray for me because, I need a job and different things. And I didn't realize how fiercely and strongly the walls of my independence were. Didn't realize that. So as much as I am involved in my church and my community and, working feverishly to help other people not be in this position, to do it the other way around, it takes a lot. You have to feel safe. And whether it's through circumstances beyond my control or those that were in my control, for some reason, that's the part that I need to be coached through. Finding safety in that vulnerability to allow others to help me the way that I would, without question, help them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I find it interesting that both of you function as coaches, master coaches, consultants, and yet you are still going through and you are still learning and processing and improving, which I think there's this image that when someone is in a role of leadership, that they have it all figured out. And the truth is that there are many people who don't, and they wear this mask of perfection, but behind that mask is so much stuff. But that mask, while it helps us in some ways, it also hurts us in many ways. And in some ways, it doesn't allow us to connect with each other. And so I love both of you, and your words are very similar. Renewal and relinquish both talk about letting go and changing. When I answer, so it's interesting because when I answer that question, what have I struggled with? And I didn't prepare before here, but immediately what comes to my mind is the word release. I picked that word at the beginning of the year. I was led to, each year I try to find a word that I will concentrate on. And release to me was a beautiful word. And it just talked about me releasing the gifts that are inside me, the ways that I am to impact and change and improve the world. I want to release all of that because sometimes I've been guilty in the past of kind of keeping my light inside for, I don't want to offend you. I don't want to look like I'm bragging. And so I dim my own light. Sometimes I dimmed it because I didn't think I was good enough. And so my prayer for this year was, let me release what is inside me and what is meant for others to have. But the way it connects with your words is because a release also meant, let me let go of those things that hold me down and hold me back. And even good things. Like my greatest struggle right now is to release my children. To be able to let them go and not worry about them so much and allow them to be the men that they were created to be without me hovering over it. Because it's not good for them and it's not good for me. In the last couple of weeks, I've had what I will call a heavy sadness. Every day I wake up with it. Every night I go to sleep with it because I'm afraid to let them go. Because if I don't watch over them, who will? Which is such a silly question because I know who will watch over them. But when you have had a habit, I told my 20-year-old, if I had a habit for 20 years, it's hard to break it in 20 days. And so this has been painful for me, but yet so necessary. So it just with the two of you, as you are letting go of something, so am I. And the other side of that is beautiful. But you don't get something beautiful without going through something that is difficult. So what comes to my mind is the work that we're doing together right now as we prepare for what I believe is going to be an impactful, unbelievable experience that we are going to call a retreat. I love this idea of allowing people to relinquish the pain that has brought them to that place. And as they relinquish that pain, then they renew themselves in such a way that they find what's good. Okay, I'm not in that role anymore, but I'm in this role, and this I choose, and let me build upon that. And when they renew, they release what is inside of them, because I think that a lot of people are in a box that they have created. Some of it other people have, because I always say people in my culture expect me to be strong. People in society expect me to be angry. People at church expect me to have faith. And then I expect me to be super. And that creates four walls of a box that is absolutely killing me. Just like Tamera said, in that role that she wasn't supposed to be in, she felt like she was dying. And I think people are in that box and they need people who can be examples to them to help release them from that box. They need to know that they have the power within them already to release themselves. They need to be in a community that they say, we too struggle. And we too have moments where we're sad or we're afraid, but that's okay. Because even though I feel that naturally, I can grab that thought or feeling and say, but where do I want to go? And now let me figure out how to get there. And that power of, I think, community, because I learned so much from being with other people who, like me, need me and I need them. And then you complement that with one-on-one work that goes deeper. But I think it begins in community. And then it ends internally, because nobody can coach me better than I coach myself. And I know I have a coach, and I meet with her every single week. And I talked to her today, and at the end of the call, I say, can I just tell you, thank you for the work that you do with me. And she said, you make it easy because of what you bring to every conversation. And I know, because I am the expert on me. But if she weren't opening that door for me, there would be so much that would be unprocessed, and I would not be able to release.
You know, I love just your whole connection from relinquish to renew. Those two words in the space of this conversation fit perfectly with the preface before you can release. You got to relinquish something to even begin the process of renewal.
Mm-hmm.
And in that process, you are then released, right? So it reminds me of the metamorphosis that a caterpillar goes through to become a butterfly. It has to relinquish that old body. I had a moment. I have a young lady living with me who seemingly has gone through this process. Let's just say that. And I just had the wonderful vantage point to watch as God was doing his work. But as I watched her over a couple of months, the thing that came to mind was metamorphosis, and then it looked like I had this vantage point to watch what was happening inside that chrysalis. And as she was emoting and discussing what was going on, what I suddenly saw and heard was there's this, as you're going through the hurt and pain and the loss and the grief and the disappointment and the sorrow and all that one could imagine a caterpillar must be going through. I mean, imagine taking your entire body and wrapping it up and being stuck there while you turn into something completely different. You can't look pretty. You probably look like a goop of soup, right? While everything gets all discombobulated inside the safety net of a cocoon or chrysalis, and then you have to even struggle to get out of that, right? And what I felt in my spirit, and it just resonates with this conversation, is, but there was not one thing that was left behind. When the caterpillar goes into this chrysalis, it goes in wholly what it is. All of that. And in that metamorphosis process, which is probably unimaginable to any of us as a human being, there was nothing left when it became a butterfly. Everything that was in it was used. There was no legs left behind. There was no, scales or anything. Everything God used and reconfigured into this beautiful new creature who is now released.
Which says to me, stop resenting the struggle, because the struggle is part of
the process.
It is.
And then when you come out, you feel restored. You feel new.
Yeah.
You feel different.
Renewed.
But you got to go through the process in order to feel that way. So with every struggle, there's a process. With every change, there's a process. And I think that we're here to help those who need help to go through the process so that they can use those same steps for the next time.
Yes, because we talk about we are going to continue to go through things to the day that we die. But the goal is, as you go through, to get skills so that every time you go through at a higher level. And that really is what I love about the work that we do with people, because it's not just talk. It is, I am going to give you these steps to work through, and I'm going to work it through with you, and then you're going to be able to do it by yourself, because we don't want people to rely on us. Because the power is within them.
Because at 3 o'clock in the morning,
yes,
I'm not going to be available. When you call me, I can teach you how to do it yourself. Wait a minute, hold up, slow down. Let's look at what happened. What happened? What is the way you dealt with it in the past? And how are you going to change and deal with it in the future?
Yes.
And this is what we help people to understand and to use those steps so that they can come out on the positive end.
I love it. And so a lot of times we say who we deal with is we work with the person who helps everybody else. It's the person my family always runs to me.
The caregiver, yeah.
At the caregiver. At the job, I'm the dependable one. You know I'm going to help you when you're behind. At church, I'm Sister Solid. Because when it falls through, I'm going to pick up the pieces.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody asks me, am I okay? Because they know I'm strong. They know I got it all together. And the truth is, many times I do. But there also are moments when I don't. And I look around and I say, there's nobody I can tell my stuff to. And it's a very lonely place. So the final question that I would ask both of you is, what do you say to that woman who says, I'm the one that they all turn to? What do I do? Tamera?
What comes to mind, and hopefully this answers your question, is choices. I have been her. I've been celebrated as her. And I have been disappointed as her, because there are times when I really, really, really don't have the energy, don't have the faith, struggling with my own fear and fallibility. That's the word, fallible.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't feel capable to support you. And so, unfortunately, there are choices I've made to just stay away when I'm going through that. Mm-hmm. And so all this that I am, when I feel strong, when I don't, I'm not there. And that's not healthy. It doesn't feel good, and it does not support what we just talked about. It does not allow me to relinquish or surrender, and it does not allow me then to renew, refresh, and release. So it's about choices. At some point, I have to choose me. Choose me. And choose me in a way that's healthy. So part of that choice, if I am the servant of servants and the coach of coaches and the, leader of leaders, then at some point I have to choose someone to be vulnerable to. And we talked about that earlier, community. Who is there for me? You have to make a choice. And it's admirable to be, strong when it's harder for others to be that. That, I believe, is a gift. But the Bible even says that there's a time and place for everything. And because you're human, you need what you give. Mm-hmm. And you can't always give yourself what you need. I mean, imagine, there are times I have worked my butt off, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, to the point where I dropped in a parking lot and there was nobody there for me. At some point, I'm at work in a parking lot after hours and there was nobody there to see about me. In the hospital, I had to make a choice that I cannot work myself this hard, because it's just me in the end. Mm-hmm. Being conscious of choice and choosing yourself and choosing to step back and say, I'm not the only person that can be everybody. Yeah. Let others take a role.
And at those times, I think too, it comes, you need to be still. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Your cup runneth over. Mm-hmm. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me. You need to recognize that you need your cup filled, that you need someone to help you, mm-hmm. that you can't be the be-all, end-all, and not get fulfilled also. You need somebody to put something in your cup so that when yours overflows, it overflows and it gives other people what they need. Your mama who has dementia, your daddy who, your children, your whomever is close to you, but you need to be filled too. And I think, especially as Black women, we have had to carry it all. Have you ever seen the picture of the woman carrying the bag? Or is it India Ari? Bag lady? Sometimes we gotta let them bags go. And sometimes things happen because we let them go. But we can't be the be all end all to everybody. We just can't. And sometimes you need to just let it go. It's Erica.
Erica Badu,
not India.
So,
But you have to understand that you need to be fulfilled also.
You know, I've heard it said, and your point is so well taken, and simply put, it is important that we give from our overflow. It's better to be in a position to be full and then be able to give from your overflow. And
Than
really,
to give from an empty cup.
Yeah, ideally, because it's difficult to, once you're drained empty, you don't even have the wherewithal at times. Just like in that parking lot, I didn't realize that it was empty. And I kept going. There was a point that I probably should have left because I was already on empty. And so, yeah, it's important to give from the overflow.
I think it's interesting what both of you are saying, because Tamera, there's something that you said which is about choice. And I think we have to be careful sometimes because it does feel good to be everybody's savior. You were speaking to that. And because you said at some point I've been celebrated for doing exactly that. And I think it feels good to jump in there and help everybody. But when we do that, then we want to be mad that everybody's asking us, but I keep going in there and saving everybody. So sometimes I've got to make a different choice because I don't always have to be the one who volunteers for everything. My sister used to, well, she still says to me all the time, check your motive. And what I learned about me is even though I have a giving heart, sometimes I was giving out of some issues from my past, trying to prove my worth, trying to get you to like me. And then that changes the whole gift. That changes everything. And so sometimes instead of jumping to be part of something, I need to do what Sandra said, which is to be still. But I find that these types of women, like the women sitting here, don't want to be still. Because if I'm still and I'm quiet, then I really can hear the blaring noise of who my insecurities and all of that. So these women get addicted to busyness because I don't know anything else to do. And that's why, Sandra, I feel like it's so powerful what you say, be still. It's powerful but hard because we're not used to that.
And if you're busy all the time, you find yourself, or I found myself, I'll say, gasping for air. I couldn't breathe. I didn't have enough air in the room to breathe because I was all over the place. I'd start this, and then I'd stop that because I got caught up in this, and I'd start that, and nothing got done, and I was overwhelmed. And when my health said, be still, I could see where I needed to go and things I needed to let go. But until I was still, I couldn't deal with the insecurities that I felt. I couldn't identify what my motive was for doing what I was doing. Because you're right, it felt good. You know, Sandra, you need to go in there and talk to her because, you know, she can help you.
She's the woman.
If you need if a situation is volatile, call Sandra. But like I told my clients, I would say, I can give you a meal, but unless I teach you how to fish, all you get is a meal. And I had to do that for myself. I had to say, it's more than just one thing. I have to look at me as a whole. And until I'm filled for myself, for me, for Sandra, then I can't help anybody. Really. Superficially I can do it to make myself feel good, but am I really helping them and helping me? I don't think so.
And see, for you, what caused you to be still was your physical health. For me, what caused me to be still was my child's health. And so we talked a little bit about it is our stuff that sometimes makes us become the superwoman or the person who has to save everybody else. And what I never realized is my stuff, I'm always busy, always doing something, always on the go. When my son got sick, I looked at him in that bed and I said, that's my stuff, because he got sick because he copied his mother. And I've been saying this for years, that we give to our children our brokenness. I received from my mother her brokenness. And until we stop and heal me, if I heal me, he heals. And so even if I don't love me enough, because you're saying I got to do it for Sandra, some people will not love themselves enough. But I guarantee you I'll love him enough.
Oh, no question.
And he has made me stop in my tracks and say, I got to do this differently. Because that's not the legacy that I wanted to give. That all of a sudden, I do everything for everybody and have nothing left for me. And I collapse in a parking lot because I've done all this stuff. And it really didn't get me where I needed to go. And so really the last couple of weeks has been me slowing down and stop being everybody's savior, which is beautiful, because my son said to me today, thank you, Mom. I just want to thank you for the time that you spent with me this summer, because I shut it all down for him. What's interesting is, but until we had this conversation right in this moment, I was still feeling guilt for all the people that I said no to in choosing me and in choosing him. So it goes back to what Tamera said. Sometimes we're constantly coaching ourselves. And so in this moment, I have to say, Denise, you are all right not to be everybody's savior. But you release that, because in this moment, the only tag you're wearing is Denise and his mom. Because that's all I can handle right now. And everything else will have to wait.
And I call that being having the S on your chest. You know, the Superman is Superwoman. Sometimes you have to, it feels good to have that S on your chest and have everybody come behind you and say, look, in the sky, there's Superwoman. That feels good.
It does.
But when Superwoman doesn't have her cape on, she can't fly.
And it leaves you depleted.
Yes. So Superwoman has to have her cup filled so that she can fly and do whatever she needs to do. Whether it's taking care of whomever at work, at home, wherever, doing whatever she does. She has to be filled. Yeah. And sometimes you got to take that little S. It's a big S. Sometimes it encompasses from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. And you have to pick it up. It's heavy. And put it to the side. And say, now I need somebody to fill me, or something to fill me.
Yes.
And that's when you look for coaching.
And with that, Sandra, I will say that the last question I was asking all of us, so I'm the last one, was what would you tell that woman who does it for everybody? What advice would you give her? And the advice that I would give her is to be a part of a community. It costs you nothing to get together, a couple of friends, like the three of us getting together and having real conversations where I take that S off my chest and I take the mask off my face and I say, let's talk about where we struggle. Let's be real. Let's be vulnerable and learn that we are not alone. So I would say be part of community, but also to invest in yourself. Whether it is finding somebody to talk to or going to a retreat, we'll be having one soon, or whatever it is, invest in you. Because if you don't take care of you, if I don't take care of my car, it breaks down. If I don't take care of my husband, he leaves me. If I don't take care of what's important, it will not exist. Right. And so we have to take care of ourselves. And I think this is the year of I'm important. I'm important.
And I think also what needs to be stressed is I need to do that with people who have my back and who are loving, and do it in a way that it's not going to come back and bite me in the butt.
Yes, and you know what, Sandra, that is so necessary to say, because most recently, everybody out there can say that they help you, and they can. We always say there's a circle of support. You've got friends and family who are personally invested, and you need your friends and family, but sometimes it's hard for them to be objective. You've got therapists. A therapist saved my life when I was 29 years old and had my first major loss. They are taught to diagnose and to treat. And somewhere in the middle you have coaching, which I believe is somebody walking on a path beside you, not as the know-all be-all, but someone who can just bear witness and use some skills to help you along your journey. But with that title, we have to be careful. And what came in my spirit most recently is use your head before you give someone your heart. Can't be just anybody.
Right.
Just because I say that I do it, there are people that are really gifted in doing this work. And I would tell you to do your homework and make sure it is somebody who is worthy of the jewel that you are.
Yeah, I agree. And with that, I'd add that it's interesting because I took note of the S on the chest, Superwoman, and to take it further, what that probably comes across as success. That's our measure of success, if I am doing all of that. But the second letter in each of those is you. You.
I like that.
Right? Success, there's a you there. And you have to come first. At some point, you have to be important. And if you're a superwoman, you have to do you to be super. And I agree with you. When you do this type of work, it is a call. It's a ministry. And there will be many that will, be called because they have a certain skill set, but the chosen are few. And you choose wisely. Choose with your heart. Research with your head. Choose with your heart. On the other side of this, as someone who feels called and know that she's chosen to do this work in this season, I also have to do the same thing. I can't help everybody. And everyone who may identify me as a coach or someone who will walk alongside of them and witness, I may not have that same response. So I can't, everyone that knocks on the door may not be for me. And I have to understand that I'm called to who I'm called to when I'm called to them. And the good thing about the whole heart is that there's a company of us. And so if it's not me, as we get to broaden our community, maybe there's someone else.
I thank you, ladies. I always love to have conversations with people who are uplifting, who have my best interests at heart, who will be vulnerable and truthful. and who are great at what they do. And I think that of both of you. And so I look forward to us sharing more information with people about our upcoming retreat and the many projects that we're working on.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.